Okay, so I thought I would start off by showing you first how I make my tea for the kombucha because I've just tried to simplify it as much as I possibly can. So what I do is I boil, I just put the teapot on, boil it, and then I make a concentrate, like a tea concentrate. This is a 4-cup Pyrex measuring cup. I've got 8 tea bags here, and I just pour the hot water on and let it steep. I tend to like green tea better than black tea, but you can use either or a blend of the two, it doesn't really matter. So I've got 8 green tea bags in here. And so basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pour the hot tea onto the sugar. That's 1 cup of sugar for a gallon of tea. So I'm gonna take the tea bags out. I'm gonna pour the hot tea in there, and then give it a stir so that we can dissolve the sugar. Excuse me, I had to go grab a spoon, so I just give it a quick stir. I mean, I guess the reason I wanted to show you some of this is because when you get on these Facebook groups, people get really picky about how to do things and what's the right way and what's the wrong way. I just feel like people will say, oh, don't use plastic. Well, yeah, I don't let it brew in plastic, but to stir it around for a couple seconds, to me, isn't that big of a deal. And so then what I do is I just fill this up completely to the 1 gallon mark with cold water. That way it's cooled off automatically and it's ready to be dumped into the vessel. You don't have to wait for it to cool down. So what I'll do is I'll fill this up with cold water, and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's ready to go. And because I filled it with cold water the rest of the way, I don't have to wait for it to cool. It's at a cool enough temperature that it will not kill the bacteria in the starter tea. So here is my vessel, and this is a gallon that I've had brewing for, oh my goodness, this one has actually been in here for like 26 days. A lot of people don't like to let theirs go that long, but I like mine tart. I don't like it too sweet. And I tasted it a couple days ago, and like maybe yesterday, and it still tasted okay to me, so I'm gonna bottle this today. I just use a tea towel with a rubber band. Like I said, cheesecloth can sometimes, it has holes that like fruit flies can get into. So you'll see that this has all kinds of like weird stringy stuff hanging down. That's okay, that's the yeast. And that's perfectly fine, and that's good. Sometimes you'll see like weird, crazy blobs of it all over the place. It's really, and that's one of the reasons I like to keep it in my kitchen, kind of so I can watch it, because it's really cool. A lot of people will say like, oh, keep it in a closet in a dark space, blah, 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 but I keep mine right here by the window. There's a curtain there, so it doesn't get a lot of sunlight, or not direct sunlight, and it seems to do fine. I've never had any problems. So anyway, what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take the pellicle or the SCOBY mat or whatever you call it. I'm gonna take that out, and I'm gonna give it a good stir, because you want to stir all the yeast and everything about like into it, so that when you bottle it, that stuff will go into the bottles, and that'll help a little bit with your carbonation. So I'm gonna do that, and then okay, so here is the pellicle mat, or the SCOBY mat, whatever you want to call it. People call it all different things. But anyway, I took that out. I washed my hands first really well, just to keep, from getting any contamination inside the vessel. So what I did was I gave it a good stir, just to get all the yeasty bits, stirred in. And I set aside like 2.5 cups that I will give to you. And I'll probably give you one of these little mats. So I wanted to show you this. This is just like a regular large size mason jar. I keep tea in here, and I really don't need all these. I probably should throw about half of them away. But every time I put more tea in it, it forms a new one. And the reason I keep this is so that like if my brew would get mold or something in it and I'd have to throw it away entirely, then I always have a reserve of starter tea so that I could start a new batch. So that's why I have that. Plus it's nice to have it around too if like people like you ask if they can have some. So anyway, I have that. So the next thing I'm gonna do is bottle. You can use, I like these flip top bottles, but they're a little pricey. I got them like at a store that sells beer making equipment. They're nice, I like them, but you can also just start out with your, your old kombucha bottles. Those are fine too. I picked strawberries today, so I'm gonna do a little flavoring with, I have strawberries in here, I have ginger in here. Now when you go online, you'll see a lot of people really like to flavor theirs right in the bottle, and that's fine, and I do that sometimes and it works okay. But what you'll find is if you put too much fruit in there or too much juice, the carbonation will get really heavy, and a lot of times you'll go to open your bottle and it'll explode, or it will just gush out everywhere and you'll lose all your kombucha. So what I like to do a lot of times when I'm flavoring mine is I'll just dump this out into a different vessel, and I'll put the flavoring in there with it. So I'll put the strawberries in there, or the juice, or whatever I'm gonna use, and put it in there, let it sit for like 2 or 3 days, and then strain off the fruit and bottle it after that. Then you kind of cut down on the possibility of, your bottles exploding. So I'm gonna bottle this. Okay, so I have my bottles filled up. When you have bottles, you want to try to fill them up pretty close to the top, because if you don't fill them full enough, it can cause too much buildup of pressure from the carbonation, and they can break. So you definitely want to make sure you fill them pretty full. And then I usually get 6 bottles out of a batch, but I only got 5 this time, mainly because I reserved some, but that's not a problem. I actually cut down to only doing 1 gallon at a time now, because with summer the gallons are going to brew a lot faster. In the wintertime they were slow, so I was brewing like 2 gallons at a time. But I have a lot of extra that I need to drink right now. So the last step is I reserved some in the bottom here, just so that, that's my starter tea for my next batch. So you can see, like, I don't get crazy about measuring every little thing out. I just make sure that I leave some in the bottom, approximately 2 cups for a gallon of tea. I don't worry about washing this. You can overdo it if you wash it too often. I maybe empty everything out and wash it like once a month, but for the most part I just empty it out and I put more tea in it, and then we're ready for our next batch. So I am gonna go ahead and dump this in. Like I said, it's cool enough that I don't have to wait. Oh crap, I gotta close the valve or it's gonna be all over the floor. If you don't have a valve on yours, that's not a big deal either. I have one that doesn't have a valve, and I just use like a measuring cup to scoop it out, and then I use a funnel to put it in the bottle. So you can do it either way. So anyway, in goes the tea. Again, you can, if you just let it sit like this, it will grow a mat. But if you want to, and I usually hang on to mine for a little while, you just put it back in, and that's it. It wants to get stuck on the lip there. So that's it. Now I just let it sit. I would say probably start tasting it after like a week, just to see if it's at a level that you like. Some people like theirs sweeter, some like it more sour. I usually just taste it through the nozzle, but if you don't have one, you can just like slip a straw in right in there like that, and then plug the top of the straw and taste it that way, just to see how it is. So I think that's it. I try to keep it as simple as possible, and I will be happy to answer any questions that you have along the way.